All right, talk to make sure that you're hearable this time.
I still don't see your channel online.
Should be live.
Never mind. It's live right now.
All right, Tokyo, can we hear you? I don't want to cut you guys off again like I did last time.
That's okay. I'm here. Can
Cool,
you hear
cool.
me well?
Okay, we're good.
Cool.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. This is the third stream I think we're doing. My name is Wondersmith Ray _Ray from Twitter. And I'm joined with my two friends, Tokyo _V2 and Alex. And we're going to be talking about scammers today. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'll go first. I've known Ray for a short period now, but we're colleagues in the OSINT world, and both privacy advocates and OSINTers ourselves. Over to you, Tokyo.
Hi guys. Hi everyone. Glad to be back. Yes, I can't wait to talk about scammers as well. I've got some stories of my own. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Tokyo _V2.
Yeah, so just up front, some things I wanted to discuss. I'm wearing my, I can't even see it, my ILF shirt because the Innocent Lives Foundation conference is this weekend at ILF Fest. So I hope everybody's going to go to that. It's a really good cause and there's lots of good speakers. Also, I make t-shirts that I donate the profits to ILF and Operation Safe Escape, and I think they should be my Twitter account now, or my Twitch account. If you go there, you should be able to see the little shirts. They're just some stupid, silly OSINT shirts that I make just to donate money. And then aside from that, has anything happened to you guys this week? Interesting? Don't all jump at once?
It's for me personally. It's been a really busy week. So yeah, nothing really. But I was quite keen on being or on your stream today, really, because yeah, I've got some stuff about scammers, and I just think it needs to be it just needs more awareness really amongst everyone, friends, family, and then Twitter world, Twitch. So yeah, absolutely, I think today should be an interesting one.
Yeah,
And
sorry, go ahead.
I was honestly going to say, just Tokyo and I were just talking a little bit ago. Probably the highlight or the biggest event that happened last week is the Euro Cup Finals. If anybody's been watching that, because it really has been a pleasant tournament to watch. Even though obviously the U.S. is not in the Euros, but it
I
has been a great
honestly,
tournament.
I don't know. I don't watch it. I don't understand it. I see all the posts about it and they seem really excited, but I don't know anything about it.
I do remember one time as an exercise we did like an OSINT investigation, just kind of very superficial on Cristiano Ronaldo as like a public figure. We had some questions. It was kind of like a little bit of a capture the flag.
Ah,
Ah,
yeah.
cool.
I thought that was pretty neat. But anyway,
Yeah, that's quite cool.
Did you find anything good? No?
it's
Nothing
interesting how much
salacious?
information you can find because celebrities are going to have like some decoy accounts, right, or some accounts that's their fame thing, but then sometimes you want to try and find a little bit more real information. So I think that was pretty nice.
What do the
Good
cool kids
exercise.
call that? What's the word for their real Instagram accounts versus their fake ones?
Yeah.
I'm not cool enough to know. I never had that.
Well,
We
there's some.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there might be some OSINT when it came to yesterday's match. I think there was someone who pointed a laser at the keeper during the penalty, and everyone wants to find out who that person was as well. So yeah,
Yep.
everyone's really
Is there a
keen now.
reward? There should be.
So yeah, that was a big controversy, but no, it was a good match, and I think we all can't wait for the final against Italy. So yeah, that should be a good one.
And when is it?
Yep.
Sunday.
Ah, time's ticking.
Sunday night here in the UK, so probably early afternoon in the US.
I think it's like 3 o'clock, 3 p.m.
True. Yeah.
It's a great time here.
Yeah.
I'm not a big sports person. I never really followed. Hockey was the one, like, that was that was the only one I followed because
Okay.
they fight, and that was interesting to me, I guess. But I never got into like football or soccer or your football. But that's cool. I hope you guys have money riding on it. I what did I do this weekend? I passed my solutions architect exam. That was pretty cool.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah,
Congrats.
that was a lot. It's a lot. I waited until the last weekend before the deadline and just crammed it all. I have like 10 pages of notes that I just like read through over and over and over again.
Wow.
But yeah, that was another check box. And
Literally.
yeah, and I think the weekend before that we played was the Trace Labs, so we didn't have a I did a solo stream then, so we didn't talk about that at all. But when we got second place, so that was pretty cool. I'm still tasting the black badge though. I want that.
That's awesome.
Oh.
You guys got second place. Trace Labs does the family reunification of like missing persons type
Yeah,
thing.
missing persons. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So
That's awesome.
you do the events, and then all the stuff you find they like package up and send to law enforcement. So hopefully new
That's amazing.
leads. Yeah. I played in a few. I've judged a few. This was the first one I got in the top 3. So that was
Oh,
fun.
that's very nice. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. I think I've only participated once with someone else, and I did quite bad because it was quite a while ago. It was quite early on. And I got so disappointed and so put off that I've never done it since.
It's good practice. It's hard because it's very dependent on the judge you get as well. All the judges are volunteers, so like some are brand new, some are more seasoned, and like they can pick. They have rules to follow, but they can kind of pick and choose what they accept and what they don't. So that can hinder you a little bit depending. But yeah, I was surprised. We were in the first place until like the last 15 minutes, and then we dropped to second. So it was pretty disappointing, but I can't complain. It's second place. So
That's
maybe we can
amazing.
play next time.
I would love to. I
Yeah.
would love to be in your team.
So I guess today we're going to talk about scammers. Everybody knows about scammers. I think that's one thing that people new to OSINT, like, they want to track. That's what I see a lot in the Searchlight Discord or the OSINT Curious Discord, whatever. You see a lot of people coming in and wanting to track scammers, and I don't know that there's lots of ways to go about it, and I just kind of wanted to talk about some scams and then maybe how we go about it, maybe some difficulties while we're doing it, just some random things. And the reason this came up is because one of my family members was actually caught in a scam like a week ago. I don't know all the details of the scam, but it was one of those gift card scams where they convince you to go and buy a gift card and then, send it to them in the mail. And he had it. He bought the gift card and he was on his way to the post office to
Wow.
send it when a family member was like, no, don't do that. So I thought it might be worth bringing up here. Have either of you guys been close to a scam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also very kind of similar experience. I used to work for a lady back in college who fell for a scam a few times. It was essentially the same
Wait,
thing.
did you say a few times?
Wow.
It was more than once. She's a little embarrassed about it now.
Yeah.
Especially since several people, including myself, told her, "Hey, this is a scam. You should be very aware." But she met a quote unquote Nigerian prince on a dating site. She Skyped him, so she saw him. He was a real person. He came up with this wild story about having kind of lots of money all tied up to a factory. And he was also married. He wanted to leave his wife. He had a kid. And then he, kind of fabricated this scenario where he just needs a little bit of money so he can untie all this other money from selling the factory that that he's giving or paying his wife for half of. And so he convinced her, this lady that I worked for, to send him initially $7,000.
Oh wow!
And then
Usually they start lower.
I don't know why it was $7,000 for starters, but she did. And then about a month later, she sent him another $7,000, and
Wow.
and then she started pressing him like, your story kind of doesn't make any sense. And he kind of ghosted her. He broke contact once he realized she wasn't going to pay him anything else. We had told her, me and like several other colleagues told her, hey, this thing sounds very fishy. Just know if he asks you for money that this is a scam. She didn't really heed our advice. And then about a year later, he came out of the blue and, pinged her again, said he didn't reach out to her because he got back with his wife. But then he said, I have a friend of mine who's really good, and I think he'd be really good for you. And he's in Canada, so he's much closer to you.
Oh my God.
And she actually reached out and talked to that second guy. And I remember like thinking like, are you kidding me? And then soon enough, he, in a relationship, they're just kind of chatting online. He did the same thing, tried to, he asked her for money. If you can send me some money, I can come visit you. But the second time she didn't fall for it. After that, I graduated college,
Mm-hmm.
I left, and then, like 5 years later, I'm talking to her, and she actually got scammed by the same motto of like this Nigerian prince again. And the second
Wow.
time she ended up filing for bankruptcy.
Oh,
She was,
Oh my God.
I always thought like, who would ever fall for these
Anybody.
scams?
Anybody can.
But then like realistically, I actually know a person that fell for it.
And I
more than
think
once.
they're
Yeah.
good at picking out
Mm.
people who may be vulnerable or lonely or
Yeah.
looking for something, and then they dive in and it's almost social engineering, I guess, because
Yeah.
they're feeling people
It's
out
true.
and then giving them what they need.
Yeah.
True, absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, I'm too poor to be scammed.
Yeah, I'm
I don't have
wondering
any
like
money to give anyone.
who could send $14,000.
I don't have any money to send to a scammer, but it is true. They do target the elderly quite a lot. My nan got scammed, so and I think she lives in quite a small area where everyone knows everyone. So I think obviously they kind of knew she was of an old age and where she lived and all that kind of stuff. So she got a phone call one day. And basically she just got told that because she'd had her landline for a very long time, she got entered into a draw and she won a competition. She won a lot of money. I don't remember how much. She got so excited, bless her. And they kept her on the phone for a very long time, asking a lot of personal questions. Full names, birthdays, phone numbers, where she's lived before. Family members, so a lot of private information that I was quite upset that she'd given to a random stranger, really. But they started asking for her to go across the road to pay the bills for the last 3 months to prove that she hasn't changed the number or something like that, really. And that's when I think it kind of clicked to her that why is she being asked to do so. And then she told them that she's never missed a bill, that she's been paying her bills every month, so therefore the last 3 months have already been paid. Why does she have to do it again? So they tried to actually convince her that she needs to do this in order to get even more money. So eventually, I think it's about 45 minutes where she hung up. Later, a couple of weeks later, basically, when she got the phone bill, she realized that she'd actually been charged for the phone itself. So that was the scam itself. So she'd never gone anywhere to give anyone any money, but she paid for the phone, and it was quite a lot of money because I think they paid. So they obviously used that technique to they phone you, but you're not one actually paying for the phone call, and they must have called from somewhere abroad or something because she paid a lot of money, and she was incredibly upset. It was so sad to hear, if I'm honest. And as soon as she told me, I knew she was going to pay for the phone call, because the more she said, oh, they wanted this and they wanted
Yeah.
that. And I said, yeah, that's because they want you to stay on the line.
And
And if they can't get their money, you're paying for this phone call. So it was really sad.
I think they target, in the elderly, they target, their memory. Can they remember that they
Yeah.
paid these things? And then fear,
True.
because a lot of, older people don't understand technology. They might scam them about their computer, or, you hear about those all the time. And that's how they get you. I mean, it can be anybody.
I mean, I also think that a lot of times the emails themselves look intentionally fishy because they're trying to weed out people with some common sense, because then they can't get really far. So they
Right.
want someone that's not going to have that common sense and is going to respond to the email, even though it has obvious misspellings and things that are wrong with it. I wonder if that is indeed like actually their TTP of how they're doing things. Like, hey,
Right.
put some,
Like,
make it a
seem
little
a
obvious.
little scammy.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually they're using OSINT now to help with their scams. Like, they'll look people up if it's a bigger scam that's worth it. They'll look people up and research them ahead of time, and use OSINT to make their scams smarter, which is insane to me. But it must
Yeah,
work.
I think that makes perfect sense. Think of how many counties in the U.S. where you can do a name search and find someone's like actual property,
Oh,
and
their
then in
voter
Zillow,
records.
your voter record, you can find their property, you can see how much they paid for their property and how much they're paying in annual taxes. If someone's living in a $2 million house, that you probably have a better odds of scamming them for $10,000 to $50,000 than someone that's renting,
Right.
right? At least that's how I would see it. And so you can absolutely kind of target it towards deeper pockets, if you would, using open source.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting spin on the scams that you see all the time. That they're actually doing research ahead of time instead of just like sending out emails en masse and hoping that they get something back. It's more targeted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Evolving.
like even the messages that I mean, I'm lucky that I don't really give my number. I don't really get scam calls or messages really, but I definitely know people who get scams targeted to people, for example, who bank with HSBC or Barclays, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of the people will be with that Barclays bank, and they will take it seriously. But if they're unlucky that one person doesn't, and they'll be like, yeah, I definitely don't bank with them, this is obviously a scam. But the people who do, they're going to take it seriously. So I think they're doing it both ways. Obviously taking a risk, and they know a lot of people are not going to relate to this scam. But I agree, but they're also looking into people online and know, oh, you've just had a baby, so I'm going to scam you now with stuff related to newborns or anything, because I know you're going to believe it, because how would a scammer know? But if it's social media, and they can definitely just
Yeah, that's
search for
true.
that.
I also feel like they come in waves, because if you remember, there was that IRS scam that was ongoing for a few years. You'd get a call and they're like, "Hey, we're with the IRS, and you owe us some money," and then they would start
Oh, I
asking for
still
money.
get those.
Usually be like a guy with an Indian
Yeah.
accent that's telling you he's with the IRS and that you owe them money, and if you pay him right now, you won't have to suffer legal actions, like that kind of stuff. And then the latest one, and I'm not entirely sure if it is a scam, because it is, and it's so widespread. What about all these extended car warranty things? I mean, that's
Yeah. I mean, I think those
I-
are just like little companies trying to profit. I mean, it's probably a scam in some way. But the
yeah.
one I get all the time is that I think it's social security number has expired. I get those calls all the time. And I'd imagine if you are not, born here, or that might scare you, and you might think like, yeah, maybe my social security number has expired and I'm going to be deported or something.
I
Well, now I
agree.
don't have to pay taxes.
Right. Darn. Okay, so I wanted to make sure to get in some of pivot to some actual like how to do stuff when you're searching for scammers, doing investigations. So I kind of wanted to pivot over here and look at some tools and maybe talk about how you guys have investigated scammers in the past. I know we see these YouTube videos all the time of people investigating scams. It's not anything new. In my opinion, the ethics are a little blurry there with those types of videos. And I personally, as an OSINT analyst, I don't like to broadcast on like a YouTube video doxing someone publicly. So I what do you guys think about, and feel free to not answer if you can't, like the ethics of investigating scams in videos and publicly like some of these YouTube people do.
Yeah. I've definitely enjoyed. There's a couple of YouTube channels where they kind of do their own cyber investigation, but they also do some actual like cyber intelligence where they get them to do the remote desktop, but into a box that they control so they can gain the information. And it does a lot of OSINT too, and I definitely enjoy it. I think it's great. And I know, over the week we've kind of talked about this a little bit, and I do feel like that sometimes, because it's almost like vigilante justice.
It is.
Sometimes and I do want to separate like the legalities. We definitely don't want anybody to do anything illegal. I want to separate the legalities from the ethics here. So staying on the legal side, but is it still ethical to do some things? Is what side are you on when you take a view of something like Batman or Spider-Man? Is he a vigilante, or is he a good person? Because both of them kind of break some laws, and they're putting justice into their own hands. When I'm watching it on YouTube, I'll be honest with you, like I definitely am cheering for the anti-scammer, as he does everything he can to expose the identity
Yeah,
of
and
the
and we do cheer for them, but would you feel comfortable making a video where you are going through a scam and you're basically doxing someone, and then like the one I watched that kind of turned me off completely was it was a kid. It was like an innocent kid under 18. He was just I don't know, bored or what, but he was scamming this guy, and the guy, I don't know if it was one video or several videos, but he basically doxed the kid and then had to put out an apology video because he did.
that's an interesting question, because a lot of uh, cyber crimes, and it's probably going to be even more increasingly so, are going to be done by kids under 18, because the newer generation is just more technically savvy than kind of our generation and the generation before us. So we're probably going to come across that scenario more and more. I think for the purpose of like YouTube videos, they don't have to necessarily provide the real information. They can give them nicknames or code names and say, I've been looking at Scarface, as an example, and I found, his information. I found his address. I don't have to give out the whole thing, because um, there's probably some legalities and some legal questions there too. And a good way to just avoid that whole thing is to maybe just give him an alias, and then you can just kind of go through the journey on how we do. Because I definitely wouldn't want to dox a kid who's maybe done something stupid. You don't want that information, because once it hits the internet, it's out there forever.
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the same issue that I have. I want to walk through things that I've done, but then I don't want to show any personal information because, and it's really hard to show methods without really preparing ahead of time and like creating, uh, like setting it up so you've blurred everything and not revealing any sort of information. It's very hard. And that's what I struggle with, because I really want to teach some concepts, but, you know, I don't want to dox people based on my investigations.
Yeah, and
I
that's
agree. Yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead, Tokyo.
Oh, I think it just brought back some memories from when me and Ray worked together on a scam article, and we had to do a lot of blurring, and it's sometimes you just have to kind of find ways to prove your point without doing further potential damage, really, because you never know what happened in the past, you don't know what's happening in the future. And you don't know what people are going to do with this information forward. We don't know whether they already know, whether they don't. So it's like a lot of questions and stuff. And even with my articles, I'm quite cautious, regardless of the person, a car, or an object, or anything. I just feel like it's just a little bit of that extra information that maybe just doesn't need to be there. And it is sometimes, sometimes I look at the context of the whole thing, and I feel like it doesn't make any sense with so
Right.
much blurring, and I
Because
just
you blurred
completely
it.
take it out.
Yeah.
And you've got to find a new way of proving a point and stuff. But so it can be incredibly hard sometimes.
Yeah, and you can always create a
Yeah.
fake scenario, but like the overhead for that is ridiculous. That was a perfect segue into this case that I'm pulling up, and I feel like we've ridden this case for a while, but it was a pretty good blog that Tokyo and I both worked on. I think it was our first thing that we worked on together.
I think so.
Yeah. So we wrote this blog. We had set out to. Originally, I wanted to write a blog about kennels that are selling puppies, and then they take their cast-offs and they sell them as rescue dogs. So they're still getting money, and it's still a breeder, but they're pretending that they're rescue dogs to get money. But while we started looking into that, Tokyo found this lady who was like a prolific scammer. And the way it works, and I did a podcast on this. You can find it if you want to hear the whole story or read the blog. I could drop it in the chat. There's 2 parts, but I'll just briefly go over this so it makes sense. So the way it worked, it's an advance fee scam. So this lady has a bunch of different phone numbers, and she pretends to be different people, and she even has other people working for her. And they say, they have a website, they say, we're selling all these teacup dogs. These teacup puppies. I mean, some of them are like Photoshopped super small. Some of them are pictures stolen from other places on the internet. This website, I don't even know if that's a real dog. Like, these are so small, I don't think they're real. But so she gets you to send money, and then sends you all the details. Person goes to the airport to pick up the dog. She'll say, oh, we couldn't send the dog because we couldn't find the right size crate, or there was an issue with the airplane, we couldn't send it. And then they just take your money, and that's it. You never see a dog. And the dogs are like $7,000. So every one she sells, she's making $7,000. And then she sells products on top of it. So she'll sell, I think this says like hot oil. Like, do you want your puppy to receive a spa package? Like, yes, please,
I remember now. Yeah,
please pour hot oil on my puppy and give him a hot oil treatment. Or a photo package. Like, so she sends all these upsells for you to like spay and neuter. Would you like your? So people, when we were looking into this, so many people were being scammed. So we started verifying it, and we found so many posts about her, specifically by name. But she lives in Canada, so it's very hard to track her down or do anything about it, because It's cross country, and she also lives in Dubai sometimes, so it's nobody can get their money back basically. And it's prolific to the point where I had to set up an email to get people to send me information because everyone kept trying to contact me because they'd see this blog and then they'd contact me through there or find me on Twitter or something and send me a message. So I have this like
Wow.
bank of people who have been scammed by her. So there's a lot of different things that we did for this, and I know Tokyo is a while ago, but I wanted to go through some of this to see if any of it is good to talk about for scams. And Alex, if I don't know if you've investigated any scams, but you do OSINT, so I'm sure you have some input in how to research scams. So let me ask you, if you come across a scam and you're going to investigate it, what do you start with? Like what is your starting point? Say you have, I'll give you a specific selector. Say you have an email. Like they emailed you a scam. They're trying to get you to send money. Like where do you start?
Is this question directed to me or to Tokyo?
To anybody.
Or
I'm just throwing it out there.
I'll be honest with you. OSINT framework is a great resource, and it does start off one of the top expandable buttons is emails, and you can take a look to do an email verify or even IntelliX and pop the email in there to see if there was any to see if the email is valid, how maybe you can get some information on how old it is, the domain that it comes from can be useful or maybe not so useful, like a Proton mail. You're not going to get anything out of it, and even if you turn it into like law enforcement, the odds of them getting anything out of it is pretty slim to none. But if you get like a Gmail and then you end up turning it over to law enforcement, they could potentially subpoena Google to try and get that information, depending on what level of crime had happened for you.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, they won't do anything, but
yeah, I mean, and then when in doubt, like you can start off by just like literally put quotation marks around that email and drop it into Google and see, like, as a very first preliminary, can anything come up to it? But you also kind of want to be cautious there, because let's say that email ties into like a social media platform like LinkedIn, because that could be, for example, a sock puppet account that the cyber criminal set up just to see if anyone is going to do or try to OSINT them using that email.
Now, I'm going to challenge you here, and I'm going to say that I would start by setting up a document or something to track what I'm finding. Because...
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Because, and we had this problem. We've done other research past this report, but when we did this blog, there were so many moving parts. And we had just started by throwing stuff in a Google Doc. We found this, and we tried to do headers, and mostly it was me because Tokyo is very organized and I am very not. And by the end, because we didn't write the blog while we did the research. We did all the research and then we wrote the blog. So when we tried to go back to like verify where we found things, it was a nightmare. It was like, I was constantly messaging her, like, where do we find this? How does this connect? So since then, I still do Google Docs because I enjoy Google Docs, but I love charts. I am a chart person. I will use Visio. I will use i2. I will make a mind map. Whatever I need to do, I need a chart. Like, how do you, Tokyo, you are very organized. How do you prefer to keep your research?
I completely agree. Yeah, I think I have to be quite organized, especially if I know I'm onto something. For example, in your case, in the example you've given, yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most crucial parts as well. Even if you don't give this to anyone, law enforcement or anyone else, still keep track of it and make it very, very organized. Google Docs, yeah, it is really good as well, especially if you share it with other people like we did. So it worked out really well for us.
And that's a good point. The sharing it with the police, if you are, and I don't recommend being like a vigilante and looking into like predators or anything like that. Please just don't. But if you are looking into a case that requires it to be sent to the police, or you're compiling a case for that, they're going to want to be able to like recreate this case. So you want to say what you found, where you found it, what the relevance is. Like, you got to be super organized to give it to them, for them to care. Because a lot of times they can't use what you give them. They have to then take what you give them and recreate all the research in their own systems.
Absolutely. That's the key part as well of taking timestamps and screenshots or whatever's really necessary to prove that you've seen this on this date, because tomorrow might not be there and it might be harder to actually find it and prove your point, really, which might be quite crucial.
And I'm going to try and guess, Alex, how you organize your... I'm going to guess you use a Word file. Am I right?
I do use a Word file.
You seem like a Word file kind of guy.
It's either a Word file or even a Notepad, because sometimes I don't want to deal with the formatting. I will definitely throw in a lot of random information or things that I plan on searching multiple times, maybe in different platforms. I'll put that on a WordPad. Word document, I like to put screenshots in there. And a good format is just search colon whatever term phrase that I'm searching, maybe even the Google Doc, and then what platform I'm using. Because like Google is great and you can use Google Docs, and maybe DuckDuckGo doesn't give you a whole lot of stuff, but Yandex definitely gives you different things just because it's more like Russia oriented.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you're looking at, like if you're looking at European type stuff, definitely Yandex. Like you want to tailor that to
so, and sometimes, you're right, I'll do that. If let's say for whatever reason, like you gave the email example, let's say I want to go into Skypely and see if they have a Skype account. I'll put like, that email as a selector, and then I searched it in Skypely and just to see, okay, yeah, it does have an account. What's the name associated with it? What's like the username that comes with it? Have you ever used Hunchly?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great tool. It's not the end all be all, but I am not whatsoever affiliated with Hunchly, but I've definitely.
I am not either, but I know Justin, and he's a very cool guy who made Hunchly. So I will throw out the Hunchly ad right there. It's good for tracking your stuff. I actually don't use it as much as I should, because I always default to Google or making charts. And like your email example, yes, I can drop it in a Word file, and usually I make like a table and I put a header on it, and then I put everything associated with that email in that box, and then it's contained. But making a chart is so much easier because you can say, like, here's an email, here's an arrow to this is how I found it. And like then it makes sense when you step back and look at it like a week later. Because if I have a Word file, sometimes I go back and I'm like, even if I've written down everything I think I need to, I'm missing something. And trying to recreate it is hard.
So are you using Analyst Notebook for that, or a Multigo, or what kind of tool do you normally use?
Visio is free, so you can use. I think Visio is free. It's a Microsoft, so that's an option. Mind maps are free. i2 is my favorite, but that is not free at all. But I do enjoy making stuff in i2. So some of the things that we did in this investigation, I'm a big fan of Spiderfoot. I don't know if you guys have ever used Spiderfoot.
Great tool.
Yeah, it's very cool. You put in username, email, domain, whatever, and it runs through finding all the correlations. It's probably my favorite tool like this that I've used. it's hard if you don't always understand what you're looking for. When I did this, I was newer in the field, and my networking knowledge, I mean, it's still not great, but it was less great then. So, if you're looking at something behind Cloudflare and you're searching in Spiderfoot, it's going to run for like 4 hours straight because, you're hitting something that's hosting a million websites. So those are just little things to know when you're searching, but it does give you, information. It shows you like charts and stuff to make connections. And I think we use part of this to gather some more information. So we got some emails and some names, and we investigated their Twitter. And then we looked into Layla. And normally I would not call out a scammer. I already have called her out several times, so I don't really. She's a pretty big scammer. I don't think anybody's gonna get her anyway, to be honest. But so we kind of, we basically doxed her and her information. We found her emails. What's that?
What country is she based out of? I'm just not familiar with
Canada.
Canada. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I feel like the Canadians would likely appreciate a tip.
I'm sure they already know because, she scammed a lot of people and they've gone to the police and all that, but she still persists. So, like, here's a good example of pivoting. So we found her Twitter, one of her Twitters. She has many. And then on the Twitter page, we can see Toronto, and also tinyteacup.com. So that's another domain that you can look into. And we ended up having so many domains that I had to make a chart of all the emails and the domains.
Yeah.
She had a few different scams.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was gonna say I was gonna say I remember you coming back to me with your Spiderfoot results, and you just bringing so much new information, and I was just like, I don't know where to start. I literally do not know where to start.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's like a fire hose. So you get a lot of information, but you still have to make sense of it, and you have to, put it in some sort of order so that you can look into it more. Scraping a whole bunch of information is fun, and you get a lot out of it, but you still have to make it important. So she had a few different scams. I don't know if you remember this. She was a writer. She sold makeup. She did have an accident where she was paralyzed. But that was another scam where she was asking for money all the time. People to send her money. She had a nonprofit set up, like here. She's asking for all her medical debt to be paid. Like no big deal, just asking for $712,000. Please send my way via Swift. I don't know why that's so big, but so yeah, she had an organization called Layla Paralyzed, where she is also advertising her beauty products. So again, we connected another domain here. And if you have Twitter accounts, you can use something like Twitonomy or something that analyzes Twitter accounts where you can see what time they're posting or, their likes, their follows. That's one of I really enjoyed using Twitonomy. I don't know if you guys use. But she often says...
I don't think I'm familiar with that tool.
You're not? Well, let me show you. It only lets you do so many scans in a day. So you go here, you connect it to your Twitter account. And then, I'll just do me because I was going to do Tokyo, but that's mean. I'll just do me.
I'm on my phone, so I can't see what you're doing. So I trust you.
So this is my Twitter account, and it shows my tweets, average tweets per day, how many tweets, retweets. This is good for misinformation, disinformation type tracking too. Tweet history, if you care about that. The users I retweet the most, or reply to the most, most mentioned. Oh, look, there you are. The hashtags I used, tweets that I retweet. It gives a whole bunch of information. And then like here, the days of the week I'm tweeting the most, and then the times. Like this would be a good indication of like when I'm sleeping, or if it was a business, like
Yeah, true.
what the business times are. And then platforms that are tweeted from, sometimes you can see iPad or Android or iPhone, and that can be some more information to look into. So I think with hers, I ran this on each one of her Twitter accounts to get some information on, and I think she had an iPad and an iPhone, and I logged that down. And it's just, you don't know if it's going to be important, but I found it nonetheless. We also did some research with reverse image search, so we saw some of her pictures on her page of her official service dog, and then found the actual picture in a whole bunch of other things in Google.
Yeah, and I suppose by looking at that and the time up and time down or charts that you were looking at, I mean, the time difference between Toronto and Dubai is significant, that it's almost flipped. So
Yeah.
if there's a long break that coincides with the East Coast time zone, which Toronto's on, then you would be able to tell, okay, yeah, that this person's now in Toronto, versus if it was the opposite, you could maybe say, oh yeah, maybe she is in Dubai right now.
True.
Yeah.
That's a good shot.
Yeah. So then, since we had a lot of domains, we started doing some domain research, and there are some tools for that. Alex, do you have any tools that you like to use for this? Like when you're looking into a specific domain, if you have a domain like, alex.com, like do you have a go-to tool that you could use?
I like Foca. Foca's pretty good. Domain tools are good, but I think that's a paid account. I could be wrong. If you just want to look into like an IP or whatever, I mean, is that Whois is a place to go? Obviously, if it's in North America, or ICANN.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm not stuck on anything. I kind of just use whatever I can remember at the time. But Domain Big Data will give. Geez, give me a, what was it? LaylaMandy.com.
We need to do a follow-up if I'm honest.
I
I would
know.
love to know what he's up to right now.
See, if you had a Word document, you'd be able to just scroll right to it.
Yeah. So if you, well, I have it right there in a blog. Okay. So in Domain Big Data, which I will copy, even though it's just Domain Big Data, I will paste it in there in case anyone wants it. It gives you information like, the title. She says she's a cosmetics entrepreneur, halal beauty industry. In Panama, that's probably not real. Oh, it's HuisGuard. So this is protected. So the trick was with her stuff. She had a lot of newer stuff, domains with this HuisGuard, which blocks down most of their information. But if you get historical Whois data, you can go back to before they enacted this. And I used to use RiskIQ for that, but now it's pay. I know I have a link for what I use now, but I don't remember which one it is now. It might be this one. Like if you go back in time far enough, you can find before she put the protection on there. So you can get all kinds of information. IPs, this registrant, which is another person we looked up in here. Yeah, we made I don't know why this looks so big. But we looked up, so we got all these domains that we could look into, and they all pretty much used the same WordPress template, which was really interesting. So it seemed to me that one person or one organization was making all of them. Because they vary slightly, but they all are pretty much the same template. So she
I
sells a lot of
remember
puppies.
reading that the English wasn't even right. Do you remember?
Yeah.
That they had, yeah, you could tell it just didn't make a lot of sense. It didn't flow, and I think they had spelling mistakes, so it was obvious.
It seemed
scam.
like translated, like they put it
Yeah,
into a translator. Yeah, and here you
yeah.
can see some of the people's thousands of dollars from multiple victims, buy puppies, just a whole bunch of people. So we did that. We couldn't fit it all into one blog because it was just too much.
I know.
It was too much. So we did a second one where we kind of broke down the organization a little more. And this is, if it loads, my chart. Maybe. I'll let that load. So yeah, here I talk about how it had WhoIsGuard on it. So I had to go back in time to find. I used RiskIQ. That was before they went pay. And I found where she was actually listed as a registrant, and she gave us an email, which I'm trying to highlight, but it's a picture. And I started making like a chart of, registrants and different domains. And just a lot of domain stuff. And then we switched to social media. So I would suggest definitely, if it's a scammer, check out their social media, because if it's a scammer like her, you're trying to be public. So it's got to be hard to be a scammer and try to be a writer and a makeup entrepreneur. And, she has all these organizations. So one at a time we went through each of these. Each of them had a domain attached to it. So we got all those domains, and we looked into who the Twitter accounts. Well, to be honest, we did the password reset trick with Twitter for her. Normally I would not suggest that, but we had so much going here that if you reset someone's password or try to reset your password on Twitter, it will tell you the ending, and it'll give you partial emails. So we got partial emails, like the first letter and then the last part. And using that, we kind of pieced together what the emails were. So here you can see we found this. And LA, that's obviously Layla. And then we just needed to figure out the rest. Another tool that I use all the time is Intelligence X. And I'm pretty sure both of you are familiar with that, right?
Yeah, it's a good one. Absolutely. I think, we definitely use that a lot, and I use it regularly. This is it, like you just said something there as well regarding password reset for Twitter. This is it, like if anyone is really trying to find something, a scam or anything, you have to know the tools you're using, because if you do that on Instagram, the person gets notified, and this is all over. So this is why it's so important to know exactly what you're getting into and knowing what you're doing, and do this like ethically and in a way privately as well, until you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, because Instagram, you'll notify the person instantly.
And this worked for Twitter then, but it's not to say a week from now it will notify them, So you have to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So Intelligence X has a whole bunch of tools.
Intelligence X is great.
Yeah.
Are you still broadcasting on Twitch? I just got an error.
Yep. Should be.
Okay.
The one I like to use the most on here is Phonebook. What is it? .cz.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which is a tool by them, and you can do domain research. Let me see. LaylaMandy.com. My IP is blacklisted. Okay. not using Tor. I don't know why it's saying blacklisted, but what it'll do is it'll run through the domain, and it will give you a list of emails coming back for that domain. And you can use wildcards and stuff. So we're running close to time, so I'm just gonna scan through here and see if anything. Oh, this one was fun. I'll talk about this real quick. So we were looking at the YouTube accounts for one of her websites, Posh Pocket Puffs.
Oh yeah.
You remember this? Yeah. So
I think I do.
so we saw these videos, and one is an instructional video for how to like pay, and then the other is like a testimonial for, you know, a happy customer who got their dog. You never see the dog; she just talks about it. So I did a reverse image search on these two, and here is the first one, and here is the second one. These are all Google results. They're paid people who pretend to be either part of the company, or they'll read things they'll read a script. They're basically actors. So she was this happy customer, but she's actually she's just a lady on a couch reading a script that you send her. So she was able to legitimize this business by having fake customers that she paid for, probably online. Yeah. We looked into the addresses. They were just kind of like a UPS store type place. Addresses that are used for secret activity, illicit activity. We looked into her accident. I made a timeline because we were trying to figure out if she had actually had an accident or if it was part of one of her scams. So we laid out an accident timeline based on her Twitter. So like she posted about her car accident. I fell from the balcony in this picture. So she said she fell off here and broke her spine, I think, her neck.
Ouch.
Yeah, so we put together this timeline, and it appeared that she actually was injured. So I did a search on this location, and I actually geolocated the exact bungalow she was staying in when she fell, which was a pretty fun find. And that was just through a reverse image search.
Was it, did I read it correctly? It was in Thailand?
Yes, I believe it was in Thailand. Yeah. Yeah, bungalows in Thailand. And then we did some stuff to show like how we know it's the same place. Bellingcat style here, just to be cool. Yeah, she had some medical pictures. She posted a lot on all her social media, so it was pretty easy to like combine it and figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And then we looked into the registrants. We didn't really find much. That's why I blurred him out, because we weren't sure if he was affiliated besides registering it. Yeah, I think that was mostly... Let me see if there was anything. Oh, we located her husband. Oh, I think you found this, Tokyo. Her conversion to Islam.
Oh, the certificates, yeah. Or certificate of conversion, yeah, I remember that actually. And we had to translate some of it, or yeah, it's...
Do you remember how you found this? Was it just a Google search?
I think so. I truly don't remember the exact details, but I think so. And I think she had like a middle name, so it's like a full passport name. And so I don't think that was her real name, if I remember right. I think she had more names.
She had more names, but we couldn't figure out exactly what
which one
her true name was. Yeah, and this is
maiden name. Yeah.
Why is Canadian spelled like that? I wonder if this is a fake document.
We tried to look into that actually,
yeah.
And we couldn't really prove it because it's so hard to find other documents like that. People don't really post something like that, so it is quite hard to prove.
And I think she had posted this on something, on like one of her sites, so it very well could be fake. But you'd think if you were from Canada, you would be able to spell Canadian. So it's a mystery. Yeah. So that's some puppy scam stuff. I hope that we gave some ideas for looking into scams. Does anybody have any final thoughts, Alex? You've been quiet.
This is actually really good. Doesn't work.
Why,
You've
thank
kind of
you.
incorporated a few techniques. You did some reverse image searching, was able to geolocate it. Was it, I mean, I know it was in Vietnam. I wonder if there was anything in the news about a Canadian woman falling out of a bungalow.
I think we looked. I think we looked for news stories. I mean, we worked on this. How many weeks do you think we worked on this for?
It was more than a month, surely.
Yeah, it had to
was
be. Between
solid.
verifying and it just kept unraveling.
Yeah, literally. It was good practice, I have to admit. And like Alex said, it was good practice to cover a lot of OSINT bases. And yeah, reverse image searches, like Google dorking and identification. It was
And the
literally so
domain, it
much.
covered pretty
And,
much
yeah,
everything.
literally it did. And I mean, we got lucky that, yeah, there was so much there. And you just using Spiderfoot and all these like other techniques that I didn't have to and used. So I think for me it was great practice, absolutely, to practice my skills and learn more, really.
And this was 2019. So this was
Wow.
a
2
pretty,
years
I mean,
ago.
this was when I started OSINT. So I'd be interested to see what we could both find now with some skills under our belt.
I would love to do a follow-up, that's for sure. Yeah,
I
I'd love to
haven't
do
checked
that.
the email that I have lately, but I have a lot of stuff that I'm not willing to talk about on a stream, but that could make for a good follow-up that we will have to discuss.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. We're over 3 minutes. I want to say thank you to both of you for coming and talking about scams. And I hope that the people watching or listening got something out of it. You can feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or on Discord and let me know if you have any ideas for any further streams. I can do maritime stuff. I could do literally whatever. Just I will take your ideas. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us, Ray.
Yep. Have a good day.